Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Circle. Again, John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look back over Leinster's poor performance up in Ravenhill last weekend, all the final round of the Pro 14, and look forward to the two playoff games next weekend. So, boys, 14-13 up against Ulster. Kind of thought we threw that away a bit.
We didn't throw it away in the same way we threw away the Connacht match last year, where we were just abject and forgetting to defend. All these games that we've lost, I was just thinking of this on the way over. It just emphasises how rugby is a game that you really need to have you need to be at the pitch emotionally. You need to have something to play for. You need to have a chip on your shoulder or some.
If you've no actual commitment or reason for commitment,
because
then no matter how good you are, you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Yeah, because it's such a physical game and such a you really need to be committed. Like they say, defense is an attitude. You need to have your attitude right, or So if you've nothing to play for, if you've won the league like after the Six Nations, it's very hard to just push on just for the crack. And I have to say, in the 4 games or 5, whatever it is, Edinburgh, Treviso, Ulster, and what was the other one? Glasgow. We never threw in the towel. We gave them a good lash. Okay, we got fairly badly smacked by Glasgow, but they had to make 7 billion tackles. Johnny Gray made 783 tackles on his own. I think we far from threw in the towel, and we should have
in all those games. Actually, considering we actually played quite well in parts.
Exactly.
We did good things in them. Not enough of them, and we didn't string them together. But then we didn't need to. But we did do good things. It's not like the Connacht game where we were just, as you say, we were abject. We haven't been abject.
No.
We've just been.
But in fairness,
disinterested.
But it was
we had a better team out than Ulster. We probably should have had to beat them.
But do you not think that when you're 1 point down, 3 or 4 minutes to go, and you're awarded a penalty 35, 40 metres out in front of the posts, that what's the point in going for this magical, mystical try? Take your points. Do you know?
Absolutely.
Rugby hasn't changed in. Do you know what I mean? Lots of things have changed about it, but that hasn't changed. But
I would suggest if it was a game that actually had something.
Yeah, okay. I give you that. I give you that.
Decision. And I think that we do have to view it through the prism of the meaninglessness of the game.
Yeah, but
it was meaningless for them too. But it was a home game.
No, for sure. But I just went through. We started off the season like dam busters. I think in our opening 10 league games we won 9, and we lost our second one, which was against the Scarlets. In our subsequent 11 games, right, so that's pretty much going back to just around Christmas, the first match 22nd of December against Connacht. Since then, we've played 11 Pro 14 games. We've won 6 of them, lost 4 and drawn 1. That's not championship winning form. It was our opening 10 games. Our opening 10 games was what won us. In fact, if you look at, say, how we finished the season, we're actually the 3rd team. Glasgow finished on 81, Munster on 77.
That's not lost on me.
And we're on 76. Now, I know we played by the rules, and we won our conference, 5 weeks ago, which is great, right? But it puts a bit of a tarnish on what could have been a brilliant season.
Yeah, I kind of disagree. I both agree and disagree. You're right. Our results have dropped off a cliff, certainly since Christmas. The thing that would worry me, and it's something I often say, it's one of those things I always say, you can't turn form on and off like a tap. But this Leinster team seems to be able to do so.
But it's two different teams, isn't it?
It is. Because when you look at the games, say, the 2 games against Toulouse, the game against Ulster, the game away to Wasps, we were able to turn the form back on like a tap.
Well,
to a certain extent. And last year I was worried going into, we'd say, the final stages of the season, the finals stages of the season, after what had happened in Connacht, because I thought, well, hold on, there's some kind of malaise or something. And then you see they came out and they didn't play like that. That was just that game. And then this season we've actually played a lot better at this stage of the season than we did last year, and the performances in Europe are actually still really, really good.
Well, you'll notice the only really since the end, since I suppose the Toulouse game in the RDS, the one belter of a game we've had is the other Toulouse game in Lansdowne Road. So what's changed on that? It's Johnny Sexton is back, Robbie Henshaw is back. Robbie Henshaw, Johnny Sexton, Gary Ringrose. You know, that's that's a lot
Dev
of.
and James Ryan make a huge difference as well. They're massive.
Of course, but like that little axis in midfield is where your creativity comes from. I'm not knocking any of the other guys who've been in those jerseys over. I mean, they're great, but they're not those three guys. And the creativity you get from those three guys is pretty special.
100%. And as Dave, as you say, when you don't really have anything to play for, as we didn't in the last month, it's very hard to keep that level of intensity to go when some of the teams, like for instance Glasgow, had a lot to play for, and as a result that win in Dublin enabled them to have a home semi, which is going to be a big advantage for them.
Probably get them into a home final,
possibly, and like obviously there's the money spinner of it and all the like you saw what they had an away quarter final down in Saracens. You know what I mean? And like they're a good side, but it's hard to go. I mean, we'd struggle going over to.
We may well struggle in a week and a half.
No, I mean any team would struggle. Going to Saracens away from home. You know what I mean? Whereas Glasgow have an opportunity now to play in their home city for a semi-final and a final. That's it's a big carrot in front of them.
Absolutely, and it's what it seems they've lost a quarter final back in the end of March. That's what they've got to focus on, and they're coming from a long way out, looking to beat us for I think the second time ever in the RDS. So that's a big deal, and if we do meet them again, it's going to be in the final. We can't actually meet them in the semi-final. So they're going to play the winner of Connacht and Ulster, I think. So that could be a few interesting games yet in this season of Pro 14. But as regards our general malaise, it does worry me too. And until I saw that Toulouse game, I was actually quite negative about our prospects in the rest of the season. I mean, I think we'll give Saracens a good go now. I'm not saying we're going to beat them by any means, but I'm not as fearful as I would have been before I saw that performance against Toulouse. But like performance against Ulster, okay, there was no Johnny Sexton, yada yada. There was no Robbie Henshaw, and Gary Ringo was a little bit exposed. Certainly on one occasion I can think of. But like if you're getting the ball and the man in your face at the same time, and you've got
you also have to remember I think we had something. I mean that Ulster were superb. That's the best they've played. It's probably the best I've seen them play since 2012. And yet at the same time we still had some more in the tank, because if you remember how the game actually ended, the game we finished that game on their line and just kicked the ball dead because the game was over. If we needed something, we could have got something.
Possibly.
I think we held on to the ball for the final 7 minutes of the game.
If we needed it,
I think if we needed to get over that line, well,
I think we've a bit of credit now in the bank after that Toulouse game. I'm sure it's done for the team what it's done for the supporters and given them a bit of confidence back, which is nice. And also, we have officially no rugby weekend, as it's called, next week. Whereas everybody,
so you'd be painting sheds and vacuuming out cars.
Exactly. Everybody except us and Glasgow in all three leagues has a game next weekend. So it's interesting the way it's done. It's an interesting little wrinkle in the conference system, which I kind of like. Would it be nice to have an extra round of the league instead?
I don't know. You see, I don't know if it would be relevant at all, because if the week before a European final, would we risk any of our starters?
Well,
probably not.
We didn't really again 2 weeks before.
Yeah, so probably not. Any that did would be at risk from. So you just find yourself in a situation where guys would be still playing at 75%. So I don't think it would make much of a difference to us. I don't think it would be either a hindrance or a help. So
that'd be the ultimate nightmare scenario, actually, if you had a semi-final or a quarter-final of the Pro 14 and then a final of Europe the following week, it'd be a bit of a nightmare, wouldn't it? You know, because you got to play all guns blazing 2 weeks in a row.
Knockout rugby. Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah,
that's what happened. Remember, Leicester Tigers had to play a final
after ours.
Was it before or after?
They had semi-final, final.
They had
in 3 weeks, I think it was.
Exactly, yeah. So I can't remember which. I think ours might have been the last one. So they had a final the week before.
And they had a fair old jaunt for their semi-final
that way
too,
or the other way around.
if I remember. I think they had to go down to London or somewhere for their. I think.
Yeah.
Well, the semi-final of the Heineken Cup for them was a kickfest against.
It was, yeah.
Cardiff Blues.
Martin Williams missed the.
Yeah.
The
was that in the Millennium? Was it?
That was in the Millennium.
Yeah. Interestingly.
A bit of a sad day for a couple of the lads. Nick McCarthy, Noel Reid, and Jack McGrath. Possibly their final game in blue. We don't know yet. Obviously, they might feature in the Pro 14 semi-final, but Nick McCarthy obviously is ruled out of the European.
That's right.
And Michael Keogh asks, "Is Mick McCarthy leaving?" Or sorry, not Mick McCarthy. Mick McCarthy. Is Mick Carney leaving, and where is he going?
He's going to Treviso, right?
He's going to Treviso. It's rumoured anyway. Nothing confirmed, but he is leaving.
He definitely is, because he was up on the stage at the Leinster Awards.
His bye-bye presentation.
Yeah.
He's definitely going, all right.
Is Rob Carney going? According to Sean O'Brien,
I think that
was it mega mischief making?
I think that might be a bit of messing.
It doesn't mean he's not going, but you know,
I think that in particular
superb wind up though. In fairness,
it was good. I think Carney's just at the old if you put yourself in his position, he's won everything there is to win in the game. For province and country.
Is he the most successful
apart from the World Cup? I'm sure
he's
he must
successful
be.
Player in the history of Irish rugby. I think he is. Yeah.
I'm sure he wants to do well in the World Cup, because that's the only box he hasn't ticked in terms of a trophy or a final or whatever,
or winning a knockout game,
at all. But I'd say he's in a happy position that he'll either get reasonable terms from Leinster, because he probably won't get an IRFU contract. But he'll probably get, or maybe he will, I'm not sure. Or he'll go to France or somewhere for some nice money.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has. I think both sides of his bread are buttered, whichever happens.
Exactly. So
he'll have no problems getting a contract with a good club in France for big money, like, because he's Rob Carney.
My reading of the situation is he probably wants to stay with Leinster. And
I think so.
I think ultimately
the only reason
that's
he
what a lot
wants
of them do want. Because I think like if you win a lot of stuff, okay, you can get a few extra quid going elsewhere, but I'm sure they've made a lot of money. Like, he's got a few businesses going here. You know, he doesn't have too long left, so I presume he wants to kind of stay and manage those businesses. And also, they do have a kind of a legacy of being that one club player. Do you know, like, it is kind of a badge of honour.
It's nice.
Yeah.
I would say that he has, that chieftain comment is probably a little bit of a throwing a stone in the water for, you know, Leinster pony up with a few quid now, because, you know, it could very well go to France. And, you know, if I'm not entirely happy, and he is in the happy position that if he isn't entirely happy, I'm sure he has offers that he could go and do some of those things for a year or two. So, you know, I think Leinster will need to respect him, and if they don't, he'll go and he'll be happy enough anyway, you know. So it's a win-win situation for Mr. Carney.
Yeah. Well, obviously there was one little bit of controversy at the game. McFadden's alleged headbutt. He was cited the other evening, so he is. He does have a case to answer whether or not there's enough camera angles.
I was there, and while I didn't see it too well live, it looked a bit handbaggish for a head. Maybe his head made contact with the other player, which is enough to get you cited. But it looked like it was a kind of a.
This is the thing.
It was a Mr. Angry face rather than a physical. You know, I don't think it hurt. Is what I'm saying.
There's a difference between, and this is a lot of these or refereeing things fall into this. There's a difference between what we think happened, and maybe even what we're sure happened, and what we can actually say from a rugby law point of view did happen. So I think Rob Ferg headbutted him, so I do. I think he headbutted him, but
I don't think he did it very hard.
The ref didn't see it. The touch judge didn't see enough of it, and the TMO didn't have an angle that clearly showed it. So that's why he couldn't get red carded. And now there could be different footage available at the match or at the citing commissioner, because the citing commissioner will have access to both teams' video resources that they take themselves. So there could be additional video there that isn't available to the match officials.
That's true.
So they could make a decision there. But people always you have to remember, it's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove from a law point of view. So he wasn't red carded because, I mean, we saw the replay footage. It wasn't definitive.
Too far
enough.
away, yeah. But you could also see on that footage that the guy's head didn't bob backwards. There was no... it didn't look like there was much force involved if his head did make contact.
If his head makes contact with the other player's head, it doesn't matter how much bloody force
I
is
know
involved.
that.
It's a red card.
I absolutely appreciate that, but all I'm saying is it wasn't okay, he could get done on the letter of the law, but it wasn't exactly like, if Ferg wanted to headbutt you, you'd be headbutted and you'd probably fall over, and probably be clutching your face for a while. So that's the only point I'm making. It's still in law. You can't stick your head in somebody's face.
We know tomorrow, I suppose. Isn't the citing hearing tomorrow? Isn't it?
Don't know.
Yeah, so we know tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if he either gets done or gets off.
Yeah, it could go either way. All right, but poor old Ferg. I can't help but feel for him. Somebody was saying that there's footage of him being spear tackled beforehand.
So what?
I'm just saying.
So
again.
What? So what?
It's not a.
So what? So this isn't a child's playground.
I understand.
It's a professional rugby player. It's not what the other boy did. It's what you did.
I'm not saying that this
really
makes a
mitigating
difference.
circumstances.
This always comes up when somebody gets shot. Oh, but look what the other. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
You're responsible for your own actions.
No, fair enough. But
pitch.
that might have been the reason his gander was up.
Yeah, well, you know the laws in rugby yourself. The guy who retaliates is the guiltier party.
Yeah.
So that just makes him even more guilty if that's the case. You know. So
But I'm not saying it justifies
no
anything.
time for that shite.
I'm just saying that there is perhaps a reason why he did it.
So what they're saying is he should be cited for a headbutt and then cited again for retaliation.
Yes,
Right.
that's it.
Dave, you have the try.
I do. I had 2 tries.
2 tries even.
2 very good tries with a lot, with some lovely passing from Noel Reid and Ross Byrne, and a nice run here from Ferg. He certainly wasn't letting it play on his mind anyway.
No, he had a reasonably good game.
Jack McGrath had a very good game, and so did Nick McCarthy.
Yeah.
This is a lovely pass.
Oh, Patry, mate.
Thought he had a great game.
Yeah, he's good, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good player. I thought he was very good. Yeah.
He should get a job
They're keeping the old.
with Leinster.
They're keeping the old O'Brien name alive anyway in the province himself and Connor.
Someone's got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean O'Brien was quite emotional there after the
Toulouse match.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's his last game in the Aviva Stadium for Leinster.
Yeah, it's just a nice pass.
Very sweet. Like, that's some skill to be able to execute that pass on the run.
Oh yeah.
Goes up over the defender and dips into the guy's bread basket. Like, that's
And we used number
top
57.
notch. Oh yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
Ryan Baird
Ryan
made his
Baird.
Leinster debut.
That's an incredible number of players, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Is it a
play in the
record?
season.
Have
No,
we-
I think we've used more in
Have
the
we
past.
used more in the
but I
past?
don't think we've ever used. Certainly not in this format of thing. This is
Oh, that was a lovely little loop.
He was very unfortunate. Actually, he slipped there.
Slipped, but still managed to keep it going. And another one of those passes over the top to Mr. McFadden.
We're really going to miss Noel Reid next season.
Yeah, I think of all of our players that are leaving.
Yeah.
Well, I obviously.
Hold on, it's Jack
No.
McGrath, Sean O'Brien.
No. I just think
British
that,
and Irish
no,
lines.
but
I
that's
think
not the point I'm trying to make.
We're only going to miss them for 6 or 7 games of the season.
Yeah,
we're
like
going to
you
miss
say.
him for nearly 20 games.
Like, if you take
Yeah.
that Jack McGrath may or may not go to the World Cup, O'Brien probably will go to the World Cup, Reid definitely won't go to the World Cup, but if he had have been sticking around, he
Lovely
would have
pass.
played every game
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
during that World
Yeah.
Cup.
Yeah.
And he brings 120 Leinster caps, a couple of Ireland caps thrown into the mix. He'd be a leader on the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
The reason, if we win the Pro 14 this year, and it won't be because of Devon Toner or
Johnny
Gary
Sexton.
Ringrose or Johnny Sexton or Rob Carney or Cian Healy. it'll be because of guys like Noel Reid.
Yeah.
They're the guys who win you those when the other guys are away, and they put in those, during the November internationals when you've got like 4 games in 4 weeks and you try, or 4 games in 5 weeks and you win them, and suddenly it opens up a gap. The November internationals, Six Nations, that's really moving day in the league, and guys like Noel Reid are the guys who drive that. So we're going to miss him. He's been a super player for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember he had a fairly inauspicious start to his, if we'll say, public Leinster career. He played in a British and Irish Cup semi-final against Munster on Good Friday, which had an unusually large crowd because the bars were open.
That's right.
And he missed an awful lot of kicks. Played very well, but missed a lot of kicks. So there was a bit of his reputation had taken some damage at that stage, but he's repaired it all by now, I'd say.
Oh, jeez, I hope so.
He also had a reputation as being a guy who wasn't the most stout-hearted in defence, which I think over the last 2 years he's really, really changed as well.
I just think it's the mentality of those players that's very hard to get. I think we had Bergquist, wasn't it? Remember him?
Yeah.
That he played back up to Carter. He came and he played back up to Sexton. Was it Sexton? Sexton at the time.
Well, he tried anyway.
We tried. We got to broke his leg on his third game or something.
Yeah.
But like, it's those fellas that are really good players, but are willing to take that secondary role. I'm not saying Reid is willing to take it, but he's played that role that he plays in a lot of those. The game up in Ulster at the weekend, he'd play if Ringrose is absent or if Henshaw is out, and he's quite capable of stepping in if either of those lads are out.
And he's played 10, 12 and 13.
But he can step up and play at European level if necessary. But there are kind of better players there, if everyone's fit. Whereas I think what we might end up having to do is play very rookie fellas. You're talking about maybe Conor O'Brien coming in, who doesn't have a whole lot of experience. So if next season, if Ringrose is out for a European Cup game, you're playing very, very inexperienced fellas with maybe 10, 15 Leinster caps versus fella with 120 Leinster caps.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's hard to get. It's hard as obviously we've seen with Reid. He obviously wants to have. He's 29, I think now. He wants to have one shot at,
first team,
being the man over in Leicester, and why not? Like, fair play to him.
No, I agree.
It's hard to stay in the sidelines for 8-10 years of his career.
We'd really miss him, but you couldn't begrudge him it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. But we will miss him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do we have any questions, Dave?
We have a couple of really interesting questions actually. Okay, so I think we're staying with just kind of moves and people leaving and coming in. We start with Curate's Egg, who asks Robin McBride, arrival of Robin McBride and departure John Fogarty.
Great appointment.
Great pedigree, good to have more outside thinking. But a Welsh coach in Leinster, will it work culturally?
I don't see why not.
I think he'll probably survive all right.
Like, geez, the guy's a great reputation. He's in a successful partnership with Warren Gatland for how many years? He was there before Gatland, and Gatland's there 10. He's something like 13 years in Wales. Before that, he was an international hooker and played for the Scarlets.
Don't know whether
he got the Lions.
He got 35 or 36 Welsh caps.
But like, the guy's a fucking gem. Like,
it's a hell of a signing as far as I'm concerned.
And who, like, why does it make a difference that he's Welsh?
I think that might have been a bit tongue in cheek, John.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think he's been a great. I mean, we missed John Fogarty, who's done really, really well for us. But like a bit like Stuart Lancaster and a bit like Felipe, he comes from outside the Leinster gene pool, as it were.
Which is
great. New ideas, fresh thinking. We've seen what Lancaster did. Because it can get a bit, kind of incestuous if you've got Leinster player as your coaching team.
And I thought they were going to go for someone like Dundon.
Need a blend.
You know what I mean? Like an ex-player that had gone off, coached elsewhere, is at a bit of a loose end, or might be at a bit of a loose end at the end of the season.
But like, we don't want people's loose ends,
No, absolutely, I agree. But I thought that they might have gone for him because they know him, right? Yeah. And he was in the Irish system. And I'm glad that they went outside the Irish system and fished in different waters.
Well, if anything that tells us it's a good move, and Murdo Thompson posted up If anything tells us it's a good mood, it's that Warren Gatland seems to be spitting feathers about it.
Exactly.
No, it's true, and like it's going to be interesting, like with that mix of different nationalities in the go. You've got an Irish guy, a Welsh guy,
An
an
English guy,
Argentinian
and
guy.
an Argentinian.
Like it's quite a
That's a
collective.
heady soup, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And you've
But
got
it's
Leo
good, though.
Cullen pulling all the strings as well, you know. So, like, I think that's a great blend.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it is. I think it's
it's nice to have homegrown coaches, and it's good to have Leo in there. You got to have somebody preserving the kind of culture of the club, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But to get ideas in from outside is brilliant, and the more diverse they are,
Yeah,
the better.
definitely.
Like,
But
you
like,
know,
He's done a lot of good work with. I mean, you look at that Welsh pack. There's guys in that Welsh pack, certainly front rows. I would not consider all that,
but they've got the best out of them.
but they're always functional at international level. I mean, I've seen Samson Lee play, and I don't think he's the first cousin of a good rugby player. But that Welsh pack doesn't get shoved around. It never gets shoved around when they're playing.
Well, from anybody I talk to in Wales, if they do have a criticism of them, it's never the scrum. They always say the
Samson
scrum
Lee?
is sorry,
McBride.
McBride. They always say, that's his big talking point, or his big attribute is his scrum coaching. And that's his primary function in Leinster. So I don't see a downside to that at all. I just think it's
but
great.
like I think that you need new voices in your like.
I think we're all agreed on that.
I can remember being at a talk that Cheika gave when he started in 2005, and he said he won't hang around for more than 5 years, and as he didn't. But he said, like, players just get bored and I can't say the same message in a different way, frequently. And Fogarty's been there a number of years. He was a player, obviously, for a good few seasons before he. Then just people need to freshen themselves up and get new voices in. Like, I suppose maybe that's why Gurv moved on and Contapomi came in, and at some point Lancaster is going to do the same. It's natural kind of thing with coaching.
If Foggs came in, actually, he was signed at the same time, or he came into the squad the same year as Issa, Rocky, a couple of other guys. CJ Van der Linde, he took all the headlines.
Yeah.
Only a couple of years before he retired. I think he retired at the end of 2010, if I'm not mistaken.
He did,
What did your man call him from? Or not, what he called Van der Linde, the high veld beef?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was ironic with 10 years ago.
Yeah.
that's
Being
maybe
slagged for
started-
having South Africans.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So, sorry, more. We've a couple of good ones. Okay, so we've a couple about the final actually.
Okay.
Okay, so we start off with Rugby Spotlight asks: Is having Garces as a referee for the final a major concern? And how do you feel about the lack of game time for the big guns again leading up to the final? Well, I think we talked about that second part already, about how they seem to be able to switch it on and off like a tap. I think
I thought that against Ulster that they would have mixed in a little bit more of, like, I didn't expect to see, say, Sexton play, but I might have expected someone like Henshaw, who had been out for, I think since the England game.
Bit of a sharpening.
Similar to Toner. So they've only like Toner and him have only played one game since that Ireland-England game on the 2nd of February, I think. Also, Sean O'Brien's coming back into some sort of match fitness. I can definitely see, like, the guy is, wouldn't say he's fragile, but he has picked up a lot of injuries in the last few years. So maybe they didn't want to risk him getting injured in that game in a kind of a meaningless dead rubber of a game. But I thought that they might have given some of the fellas that were coming back from injury from the Six Nations some game time, but they didn't.
Well, I always remember Pep Guardiola, when he was in charge of Bayern Munich, was criticised at one point for resting almost the entire, or a considerable number of members of the first team in the run up to, I think it was the Champions League semi final or something. And their Bundesliga games were all against teams in the bottom of the thing, so they didn't really need them. But he was saying, he says these guys need match practice. He says, do you think they're going to get better match practice playing against Bayern Munich players or against Hoffenheim players?
There's probably a point in that.
So there might be something there.
And they used to say that about Blackrock in schools. The hardest match of the season that they play was the house match.
Yeah. With the first part of the question. Is having Garces as the referee for the final a major concern?
I think it might be a bigger concern for Saracens than us. Garces tends to, he gets calls wrong for sure, but he tends to be very laissez-faire, and he tends to let fellas take each other's heads off, which...
Well, I have a question. Here's a question.
I think we might be more used to him.
Would
as well,
we
I'm
be
saying.
hearing as much complaints about Garces at this point if Munster had won that semi-final?
No.
No, I don't think so. We had Garces last season for the quarterfinal against Saracens, which
Saracens,
we
yeah.
won. We had him 2 seasons previous to that. Was it 2?
Claremont?
Against
no.
Bath in the
Obviously.
quarterfinal, which we won. Including actually a relatively controversial decision that went our way. There was a penalty late on in the match where it looked like Richard Strauss had gone in from the side, and he actually gave the penalty against Bath because Matt Garvey had gone in from the side before Strauss had gone in from the side. So, I mean, it's not like... I mean, we've had him a couple of times. We're well used to... I mean, Garces... I mean, and then you think about it, what other options are there at that level? I mean, Poit seems to have kind of... His form... He's not getting picked for big games at the moment, Roman Poit. Nigel Owens isn't an option for this match for obvious reasons. And Wayne Barnes is English.
I think that's a terrible pity if it's true.
I say that they want to keep everything above board. I mean, that's just my tinfoil hat on. Wayne Barnes is English, so he's obviously out. So there's really only one option. I didn't think he was that bad against Munster. He made mistakes both ways. I mean, he made a few penalty calls against Munster he didn't like. He should really have disallowed the Munster try. 6 to 1, half dozen the other, really.
Well, he does.
And that's what you want from a ref.
He does tend to even himself up. Yeah, he does tend to even himself up. But my point is that he lets stuff go quite a lot that other refs might not, especially some of the violent stuff, shall we say. Sometimes he waves stuff on that you go, oh, really? But yeah, we'll take that one on the chin.
I don't really have a problem. I mean, there's some refs. I prefer him to Wayne Barnes.
I don't know.
The way Wayne Barnes referees the scrum has historically been problematical for Leinster.
That's what you said last week. Yeah.
So, I prefer. That's just. Sometimes you have to look at what a referee, how his style matches yours.
If you ask anybody who has a strong opinion on referees, there's never one. They're all shit.
Does anyone like?
I do know because I interviewed Greg Feek for a documentary, and we were kind of going through that. And one of the things we were talking about was that Claremont match, and he went through it like surgically, all the things that Claremont were doing that they were trying to highlight to Barnes, and Barnes just wasn't interested in it. And that's his style of refereeing the scrum. And he says at the end of the day, we had to pull the entire front row and put on another front row to show that we were trying our best to stay legal, kind of thing. But
yeah.
Anyway. Now we had another good question in, and it's another topic that's been talked about quite a bit in the last week or two and it's from Demented Mole, and he asks, how do you deal with a team who put up Gary Owens with the intentions of batting them backwards rather than catching them?
I made this point last week, and I was poo-pooed. I think it was you, Jason. I said, just should be able to just fucking catch them, like, or whatever you said. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was kind of...
That sounds like Jason, in fairness.
It was kind of like, so what? They're going up to bat them back, or they're going up to catch them. What's the difference? I think it's a huge difference, because it's very easy to... If the team are doing it in coordination, and you've got two players coming up, one of them is only just trying to get a hand to the ball and put it in the right direction.
But
whereas somebody else, the defender, is trying to get it into a breadbasket and catch it on, with his elbows.
But like we've seen how it was negated when Ireland were doing it during the Six Nations, that there was teams that were using these guiders to come back and to block or to guide, to shepherd away the fella who's trying to compete with the ball.
Niall O'Malley asks a question as a follow-up to the Demented Moles. Do shepherding lines need to be actively considered obstruction? Giving a chasing winger a nudge at lift-off point has led to a few guys running through the legs of a guy in the air and red cards. And I agree with that. I mean, there's nothing to say. There's nothing to say that you have to. I always say there's nothing in the laws that says you have to get out of a guy's way. You just can't get into it. Mm-hmm. So if you shepherd right, it's perfectly legal.
Or stick your shoulder into.
So just stand a few lads around like American football. To block.
Isn't that what
the thing about the high ball things is? There's a couple of ways to look at it. One, you take each one on its merits and you contest it to win it, right? So that's one thing. Yourselves, leaving aside what the opposition are doing. However, if you've got a situation, it's not like we're living in. Like we live in Ireland where everyone plays or has watched or knows of Gaelic football.
You were going to say
and
that.
One of the things that teams with inferior midfields will try and break ball rather than catch it. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they'll load midfield. they'll have a guy to break it, and they'll have guys dotted around to try and catch the breaking ball. Now, you can't obviously surround a guy in rugby because it's obviously offside and stuff like that. But what you can do is, if the ball is coming to you, if the ball has been kicked towards you, obviously you have your guy up trying to win the ball, but then you want to get a guy past him.
You want to get 2 or 3 guys. Because
Yeah.
they're retreating.
And come around- yeah,
Your
and
team
come
are
around.
retreating. But
So-
don't retreat behind the ball.
Yeah.
Retreat in front of your fullback, let's
Exactly,
say.
yeah.
Exactly.
And stay there.
Yeah.
And
then
you're blocking.
Yeah.
You're not moving, you don't move out of the way, but you're blocking for your
Run
fullback.
towards your own fullback while
And
not
run
looking
past,
at the other guy.
run past your fullback. And then you're also, if one of their defenders tries to
well, you see,
tip
the
it
thing
back,
is, they can only bat it one way.
yeah,
You know, that's something that's different for Gaelic football. Gaelic football, you just get a fist on.
exactly. Yeah.
In rugby, you can only bat it one way, so you
course.
kind of know where the ball's going to end up, or roughly. And the other side of it is when you're kicking the ball, and if they're doing the same thing, you have one guy chasing, and you have one guy chasing beyond, and it's not that. You have to look at it in the context again, because Saracens are such an intelligent team that they might go out and not do this at all, because they have Alex Good, who's superb in the air.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have Liam Williams, who's superb in the air. So they could decide not to do this at all. They could decide to catch every ball on its merits. So what you have to do is you have to be tactically aware
Sure.
and responsive on the pitch.
Do you think then that will, you know, and Larmer has said it, you know, like he said, I am weak in the under the high ball. It's one of the weaknesses that
He'll be the one
Do you
targeted
think that that might lead to him not
if
being
he's
selected?
selected. If he's selected.
You know,
It could be, or it could be something that's been worked on.
He
You
won't
know,
be
it-
selecting Adam Byrne anyway.
They could, for all we know, Jordan Armour could have spent the last 2 weeks going up after high ball after high ball after high ball and getting walloped in the air every single time, just to get him into a position where he's confident going into the air for a ball. Because a lot of it is confidence.
yeah.
A lot of it is confidence.
Do you remember what Eddie Jones waving stuff in the guys' faces before the Ireland-England game when he was training them, and he had a big ribbon or something that he was waving at to try and distract them while they were going for
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, they had the woggle sticks or whatever they call it.
whatever
Yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Yeah. So there could be a bit of that going on.
It's all about. I mean, catching a
we
ball.
laughed. But
Catching a ball in any sport, be it rugby, be it Gaelic football, be it basketball. I'm speaking from personal experiences. It's all about getting yourself in the air with the confidence that you're going to come down with the ball, and not worried about anything else that happens.
Yeah.
And it's all about building confidence, and confidence is something that can be learnt. It can be ingrained.
Practice,
So
practice.
basically, how you deal with a team that's going to bat the ball down. One is you take the ball in its and try and catch it clean, and the other is you have secondaries going round or coming back.
Yeah.
well,
but
well, England did it to Ireland in the Six Nations. Exactly, very similar tactics. Saracens did it to Munster in the semi-final, so we should at least be expecting it. And if it does come, we should be well prepared for it. Whether we'll have the wherewithal to do. Saracens are just they're we always used to call them the Borg on this program many years ago, and that's what they are. They will assimilate you, and you know we've just got to be more Borg like ourselves, because we can do that shit too.
Yeah.
So it could be a battle
I mean,
of the Borg.
the thing about us is, I mean, you look at the way other teams look at us from a rugby perspective, is not dissimilar in the way we look at Saracens. You know, that kind of the way we do play, we can be grinding, and we kind of get through a team like a drop of water gets through a rock. You know, and Saracens can be like that, and we can be like that. I mean, we obviously have our own perception of Leinster, but supporters of other teams have a different perception. And I would say that their perception of us is not all that different from our perception of Saracens. So it's going to actually be a very, very interesting match, because you're going to have, you know, is it going to be 2 rocks or 2 drops of water?
What will we have to talk about next week, lads? Are we even going to have a show next
I'm
week?
sure we'll have plenty to talk about.
a big preview to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have a few more matches we need to go through. Or do you have a few more questions, Dave?
Not a question as such, but there's an event on for people who can't make it to the final. There's an event on in the Sandymount Hotel. Obviously, on the day of the final, wouldn't be much use any other day. It's called 5-Star Meetup. It's been organised by a group, three blokes, a ball and bod, which is kind of a blog and an account, rugby account. And they're trying to get like people who can't go to the final and other bloggers and stuff like that. So they'll be talking to Harpen and Rugby, talking to Demented Mo and stuff like that, to try and get, you know, a gang together, so put faces to names or
Very
whatever.
good.
So it's on
Sounds excellent.
Saturday the 11th of May at between 3 and 11 at the Sandymount Hotel. The event's been organised to bring together Leinster rugby fans and others from a variety of forums to watch the European Rugby Champions Cup final, Leinster Rugby versus Saracens, have a few beers, make some new friends, re-engage with old ones, and have a great afternoon of crack, banter and rugby. So it's the Sandymount Hotel, as we said, on 3 to 11. And there's going to be an outdoor marquee, large screens for the game, and there's going to be a bar and barbecue. Guest speakers from a variety of forums who give us their thoughts on the game on both sides. I presume none of them will be Ewan McKenna. We might even have the odd ex-player or coach drop in for a quick chat as well. Plus, of course, there will be you, in capital letters. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really good event, a good option for people who can't make it to the final. It's free to attend, which is another good thing.
Sadly, I'll be in Newcastle.
So if you search Facebook or Twitter
Or maybe
for
not sadly.
5-star meetup or Three Blokes a Ball in the Bod, you'll find all the information there, and I'd heartily recommend it. Because it's always good watching a game like this with mates, like instead of
Absolutely.
although sometimes I prefer the dark room, total exclusion zone, and I think sometimes people who know me prefer that as well, because I can be an absolute Ewan McKenna coming up to a game.
That's
Surely
a new
not.
swear word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Surely not.
I can be a total.
Did you say
Ewan.
one thing? What a tosser.
Oh, he's a total Ewan.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about him anymore. But there was other matches at the weekend.
Yep.
So there was a few games that were quite. I think the one that kind of was Zebre Treviso, a fantastic result for Treviso. I don't think it was really
Got
under
the
any
bonus
doubt.
point, didn't they?
But it was the first time to qualify for the playoffs, and Italian rugby has obviously had quite a lot of criticism, particularly from say English media who want them excluded from the Six Nations. They've done their best to get them out of the European Cup, but they're back in it now.
On merit.
On
Yay.
merit. And it's great for our league that we talk about having diversity within our coaching ticket in Leinster. It's great to have diversity
Of teams,
of
of
teams.
styles.
Like we all know how good the say Welsh national team is. No team qualified for Europe for the playoffs from Wales. But it's great to have an Italian team now qualifying for the playoffs and obviously getting into Europe.
Yeah.
And just another really good thing about it was, as you said, they've never been in that position before. And you're saying there was no doubt that they were going to do it, and there probably wasn't. But at the same time, a lot of teams, when they're in a kind of a must-win position for the first time ever,
Sometimes.
especially in a local derby, can collapse.
Yeah.
But they didn't, which is fair play to them.
I'd say they give Munster a fair game. I mean, if it wasn't in, if it was in Italy,
If it was in a
I'd
neutral
give them
venue,
or
you'd
even
say,
a neutral venue,
yeah.
you'd
But
give
like
them a chance.
They did. I know Munster did beat them in Treviso a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
but I think that was meant to be quite a close game. I didn't see it, but it was. I read something about it. It was quite a
It was close for 50 minutes.
close for a while, yeah. But anyway, sure. Look, it's a quarterfinal or a playoff match, not really quarterfinal.
Yeah.
But,
It's on, especially on no rugby weekend next weekend. So it's actually there's rugby on. Strangely,
It should be rechristened. Actually, quite interesting rugby weekend.
strangely.
Munster took on Connacht. I watched that match. It's kind of Munster
I
just
didn't see
always
it.
looked in control of it. I thought.
Munster never had any.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
it was
kind
never
of. It's a
any-
It was a
shame.
dead rubber for
But
Connacht.
it's a shame that there was, say particularly the matches that were held in Ireland, the Irish,
Mm-hmm.
the two Irish interpros were dead rubbers. Neither team could.
Well, Munster could have, if Glasgow hadn't have won their game, Munster.
That had nothing to
could
do with Munster. Munster just needed
That's
to
true,
win.
but they did need to
Yeah,
win.
but I mean,
with a
they were
bonus
playing
point.
at home against Connacht, who sent out their
It was,
bees.
it was a comatose rubber. It wasn't a dead rubber.
But Munster sent out, Connacht sent
Just
out
rested.
the lad that
It
rested.
was
Lovely plumage.
Yeah, it wasn't to be strictly accurate. It wasn't a dead rubber. One has to be precise about these things.
Okay.
But it was certainly circling the drain.
It was neither deceased, demised, or defunct.
But
It wasn't an ex-rugby match.
one game that could have, I suppose, put a spanner in the works for Glasgow was their derby against Edinburgh. As it turned out, they won fairly handy. I think it was 34-10.
Yeah, Edinburgh kind of
Imploded.
peaked a bit too early this season. They imploded towards the end of the season, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looked almost like that they were putting all of their eggs into the European basket.
I think they were. I think they lost. They're running themselves a little bit there coming into Europe. And in fairness, they didn't lose by much to Munster.
No.
But
But like
they were unlucky enough.
Munster at quarter-final stage are as deadly as we are. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah,
They're serious beasts,
they
all right.
know how to win those
oh yeah,
matches.
Yeah.
And even though they had to go away and there was a huge crowd, there was 30-odd thousand over in Murrayfield that day, you just kind of felt that Munster, if it comes down to the wire, they just have something in their DNA.
There's
that they know
there's
how
only
to win.
2 or 3 sides in Europe
correct.
that you wouldn't fancy Munster in a quarter-final
Yeah, yeah.
against.
And they generally are the semi-finalists.
And Edinburgh ain't one of them.
That's
So-
true.
I agree with you, yeah.
So yeah, I think it went to their heads a little bit, that quarter final, and they never looked the same team
No.
just before or after it. I don't know.
But maybe like because they,
Bit of a learning
like
curve for
they're a professional rugby team. I presume they go into every match thinking they're going to win, and when you get
Absolutely.
this stuff knocked out of you, like when you're kind of get quite close as they did to Munster
Yeah.
in front of a very big home crowd. Maybe it just knocks the stuff out of
Possibly.
you, knocks the confidence out of
It
you.
can
I-
do.
I'll have to
look what
say-
happened to Ulster the following week after the quarter final against us. That can
Like,
happen.
it's hard to
It can
raise
have
your game.
a very strong psychological
Yeah.
effect.
And like you see the other side of the coin when we qualified.
Yeah.
Just mean like it's kind of, lads, I'm not going to get injured. I want to be part of this team. I want to play in the semi-final of the Pro 14. I want to try and get into the Pro 14 final team. You know what I mean? Even if you're not one of the main boys that are going to start in Europe.
2 things. One, I think it's a bit sad for Edinburgh that they don't even get European number 1 rugby next year. They don't even have a chance of it. But also, I have to say that Richard Cockrell has turned them into a serious side.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They lost out at the last moment,
yeah.
but look at how shit they
Yeah.
were with Alan Solomons at the
Yeah,
helm.
no, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
And
definitely.
look at how good they are now. Like they've browned the trousers of several opposing teams that you wouldn't expect them to do so. So fair play to them, and they'll only get better.
Yeah,
Next
they were
season.
they were 6 points off Treviso,
Mm.
which it's one game and a bonus point
And
elsewhere.
Treviso were good this year. It
Yeah.
has to be remembered. Treviso were
Well,
good
now you
this
see,
year.
Treviso have an advantage. They play Zebre 3
3
times.
times, yeah.
No, seriously, like, do you
Yeah,
know
it
what I
is,
mean?
it is an advantage, yeah.
Like, just one thing I did want to touch on actually was, are the conferences going to change for next season?
It looks like the only change is that the Ospreys and the Scarlets are going to swap conferences. Otherwise,
So we're essentially swapping the Ospreys finished 4th in Conference A, and Scarlets finished 4th in
Yeah.
Conference B.
I watched Scarlets and Dragons.
one of them will be in Europe next
Cracking game of rugby.
51,000
Absolute
at the
Yeah,
Millennium.
yeah, good.
year. Big drop.
They got. It's still a good crowd.
It is, but it's 12,000 drop from last season.
Yeah, I still think that once you get over the 50,000 mark, you're doing all right. I thought that and they missed some superb fare. That Scarlets Dragons game was absolutely brilliant, end to end stuff, all the drama you could want. Really good game. And then what happened, John, in the Ospreys?
Oh
Cardiff
yeah,
match?
didn't Mr. Anscombe
He
miss
missed
a
a pen-
kick?
Now, admittedly, he'd scored 18 points previously,
So you can't
so you
fault him.
can't really blame him. But he did miss the kick, so you were part right there.
Oh, I wasn't. I was just saying. Imagine if.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying he was going.
Well,
to.
your
imagination
future world
was
came into
functioning.
reality.
There's some great crowds at the weekend, as I mentioned, in those 2 matches in the Millennium. There was 51,000. There was 20,000 down in Limerick for their match against Connacht, and 17 up in Ravenhill.
That's a good crowd
You know,
for an actual dead
for
rubber.
kind of dead rubber match, obviously, and sort of there was the Welsh teams were pretty much, okay, there was the Scarlets could mathematically qualify, but they needed a lot of other results to go
Yeah.
in their favour. So it was great numbers going through the turnstile, considering as I said, like those matches wasn't the be all and end all depending on them.
Yeah,
Well, there'll be one region in the Champions Cup at least next year.
yeah.
It's possible that there could be 2. For that to happen, lots of things.
A
have
lot
to
of the
fall.
ducks have lined up.
They have.
All the
If you froze the leagues now,
it would
unless
all
they're
come down
one,
to Len. Yeah, then they'd have 2 teams.
it'd have 2 teams. But the English Premiership outside of 3rd place is so close,
Yeah,
down to about 10th place. Like the team in 9th place can finish certainly 4th. Because there's 2. Is there 2 or 3? I think there might even be 3. Oh, there's one next week. Now there's two games left in their season because they've another round after the Heineken Cup final, another round of the league. So I can't see both of those teams staying in the top. Wasps will probably get back in ahead of either. Who are the two that have to stay in? It's Sale and can't remember who's the other one, but it's La Rochelle and Clermont who are obviously the finalists.
Sale and Quins, is it?
Sale and Quins, you're bang on. Quins are currently fourth, but looking dodgy, and there's like literally points between third or fourth and nearly ninth. So there's going to be a bit of a shift around, and I can't see both Sale and Quins staying in the top six. La Rochelle, however, are in sixth. Clermont are obviously way off in the distance behind Toulouse, so they're not going to fall out of the top six. But La Rochelle might. Don't know. I'd say the two of them are much more likely to finish that way than Sale and Quins. But obviously Leinster have to close the deal by winning the Heineken Cup. If they don't, it's down to it's going to be either an English team or
we'll plot that.
Or an English team.
We'll plot that next
course,
week.
That course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things before we wrap up. James Ryan was voted Player of the Year.
Unsurprising.
Hard to disagree, really.
Yeah, and Cronin was voted the Supporters Player of the Year.
Yeah. Again, hard to disagree.
So,
I mean, any guy who can play in the centre as well as he does is gonna impress supporters. I mean, he impresses me.
Yeah, well, hopefully he will be back for the final against.
The word is that he is.
Yeah,
Purely precautionary.
So they say. Yeah. Hopeful. I mean, if we didn't have him, he'd be a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be one of the few now that I would, be very fearful.
Yeah. So, boys, just briefly, we'll just run through the playoff games next weekend. Ulster take on Connacht.
Where?
It's
Ravenhill.
in Ulster.
Ulster.
Connacht won there earlier this
They did,
season.
for the
First
first
time
time.
for in.
Yeah, I think
Since
This year
JFK.
seems to be debated, isn't it? Like, no, it's 64 or 61.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
I
now.
looked
They've
it
won
up
there for the first. Connacht haven't won in Ravenhill since January.
Yeah.
since JFK was alive previously, but I looked it up and I was pretty sure they won 2 years in a row, 62 and 63. So one of them, by definition, had to be. But on the telly, they were swearing it was 1960. So I don't know. It was either 1960 or 1963.
I'm going to go with Ulster because I think that apparently they're going to have everyone fit, and they seem to have got. McFarlane's done a good job there this year.
Yeah.
He
And they're
has.
at home. Let's not forget.
I think the only guy that they're going to be missing is Marty Moore. He's potentially out,
I
but
think he's out for the season.
yeah. And
Connacht, Andy Friend has Connacht taken over fairly
Connacht,
nicely.
I just think Ulster have a little bit too much. I think that
I'm not disagreeing at all. I just think that there's potential for a good game of rugby to break out.
there's
And Ulster probably will win it, on balance. But if Connacht came up and did the job, I wouldn't fall out. I think Ulster Glasgow in Glasgow will make an interesting semi-final.
Well, we have to talk about the other quarterfinals first.
Of course, but I'm just mentioning that as an
Oh, yeah,
aside
yeah.
to this quarterfinal.
And Munster take on Treviso for the right to fight us in the RDS.
Yeah, which will be interesting. I mean, it could go either way. If we're all expecting Munster to win, but it could go either way in the RDS because we'll be coming off the back of either a really disappointing or a really elating, where we're on the piss for a week, Heineken Cup final. It could sap
If you remember
motivation
last
either
year,
way.
like Munster, I would say, beat themselves in that match.
Yeah.
Like they were.
We rested players, which is a bit arrogant of us.
We were passing balls in. Sorry, they were passing balls
Into
into
the ground.
touch. They were very sloppy.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, a year later, you'd kind of say that they probably shot themselves in the foot in that game.
They did, and I don't think they're going to do it again. And I also think, after the amount of semi-finals in a row in Europe they've been knocked out in, they are going to not want to lose a semi-final. Whether it's in the RDS or on planet Mars, they are going to be.
It's just like
Up
England
for
in
it.
penalties, isn't it?
I think I to be honest with you, I think whatever say a lot of it will depend on they have to beat Benetton first, which I think they will, but they still have to do it. And secondly, a lot of it will depend on how it goes against Saracens, between Leinster and Saracens. because if Leinster come out of that game without winning, Munster have no chance.
I don't know which way. It could go badly either way. Like, you know, Leinster win that game, and they could be like you say, they could be on the tear, and it could be like 2011, and they'll just come up a bit short. But Leinster lose the game, it could sap their confidence.
I think there's a different mindset around the club. I mean, that didn't happen last year, and last year's win was extraordinary in a way because I mean Leinster hadn't won in a number of years. There was questions about whether Irish clubs could ever win it again, and then Leinster went out and won it. So last year's was more. They were more likely to go on the Raz after last year's than they are after this year's. You know,
Possibly.
because if you remember in 2012 they didn't go on the Raz after winning the European Cup that year. Now we got beaten by a very, very good Ospreys side
in injury time.
In injury time,
with a questionable conversion that I still don't believe went over. But anyway.
So I mean, I think that kind of thing. I don't think that would be a big thing. Well, there might be a psychological issue there after if they win or if they lose. But I think that the sight of the familiar red jerseys in front of them will
focus the mind.
So
that'll be an interesting contest, shall we say?
Yeah.
Win or lose. Let's get the big game out of the way first, though.
Well, anyway, John, enjoy washing your car and painting your fence next weekend with no rugby to watch except those two matches. Anyway, as ever, thanks very much, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.